Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This has not happened to us since 2020. It looks like we are just a little bit short of having a quorum. What we did the last time this happened to us, which was sort of during the height of the pandemic, is we did not have an official meeting, but instead of wasting everyone's time that came tonight, and we do have staff here to present, what we can do is have an informational meeting. We will not be able to take any votes. We will not be able to approve our minutes. We will not be able to vote and make any formal recommendations from DAC to the board, but we can have an informational meeting and staff can capture feedback from DAC members and relay it as feedback, sort of not extensively different than if they had a community workshop and just solicited feedback, as in the feedback is not official, but it is coming from the members of DAC, and the board members, such as Ms. Patrica, can weigh and evaluate that feedback accordingly. If a point comes in the meeting when we do achieve quorum, we can inform everyone of that and convene an official meeting. So I guess I would certainly appreciate if everyone stays. Technically, we are not having a formal meeting. This is going to be an informational meeting. And we won't have formal minutes of this meeting as it's not a formal meeting, but we will ask the staff who is responsible for the presentation and our wonderful, I always use the wrong term for our Ms. Mayor and Clayton Simmons and the folks, the divisional department heads. I'm using the wrong title for them. Dr. Kim McCoy will rescue me here at some point. They can help capture the feedback along in the breakout sessions, along with the presenters, so that we can have a productive meeting unofficially and without any formal recommendations. So with that said, we will not be moving to approve minutes. Certainly board member Patrica is welcome to make any comments she would like to make to the members that are present tonight for this informational meeting.
Good evening, Chair Hertz. Thank you so much. I wasn't really going to give you a district update tonight. I was going to speak a little bit more from the heart, if you all don't mind. With the events that happened at the Covenant School, I'm sure that parents, teachers, educators in the meeting tonight, safety and security in our schools is very much in the forefront of your mind. And I just wanted to sort of give you my perspective on it, just very briefly. I shared at a board meeting recently that we had what's called a swatting call at South Fort Myers High School, where my son is a student, several months ago. And this is how it played out for me. I was at home on social media, and in one of the moms groups, I saw a post that said 21 dead, active shooter still on campus at South. And while I sit in front of you as a school board member, I was most definitely a mom in that moment. The sense of terror that I felt in the pit of my stomach is really beyond anything that words can really describe to you. At the same time I was reading that post on social media, I was getting a text from my son that confirmed basically what I had read on social media. It said, "Mom, I'm hearing that there are 21 dead on my campus and that there's an active shooter on the campus." And so, I immediately called the superintendent, and the superintendent did not answer my call, which is incredibly rare. But I did hear back very quickly from the chief of staff, who explained that they thought it was a hoax. They weren't sure, but they would, as soon as they knew, they would let all parents know, not just me, but all parents know what was going on. It turned out that that was a hoax. It was a swatting call. It occurred at, I think, 30 or 33 different high schools around the country at the same time on the same day. And while it was a terrible, terrible experience for the children and the staff in that school, it was an opportunity for us as a school district to go through what we thought was a real active shooter incident. And minute by minute, that incident has been broken down, and we have been able to look at what we did correctly. And we also saw some opportunities to do things a little bit better, should an event like that ever occur in Lee County. So it's hard to turn something so scary into something positive, but I genuinely believe now in hindsight that that was positive. And I can't share with you the minute by minute breakdown of what went well and what didn't go well and the changes we've made, because that is safety and security, and those things need to take place behind closed doors. Those conversations cannot be open to the public, because then the public would know, what our plans are and find ways around those plans. So part of what I want you to understand is that, I come to these meetings each week. I give you a school board member update, but I'm a mom too. I've got 3 kids in our schools. My daughter graduated last year. Previously, I had 4 kids in our schools. And I do get a lot of calls from parents at times like this. I also get calls from parents when there are active shooter drills, or there are threats of shootings or other safety and security incidents on our campuses. I get a lot of calls from parents. And what I tell them, and what I'm going to tell you, is I feel safe sending my children to school every day. And if I don't, if something occurs where I don't feel safe, I will have that conversation with you as well. I will be the first person to step in front of a microphone and say, I don't feel safe sending my kids to school today, and these are the reasons why. Now, no one can guarantee your child's safety or my child's safety in our schools any more than we can guarantee their safety anywhere that they go in the world. But I am confident that we have excellent measures in place to protect our children and our staff to the greatest extent possible. And the other thing I'll tell you is that I was very, very impressed with the response of law enforcement during that, during the swatting incident that occurred at South. Unlike some other incidents we've seen that have been well covered nationally, where the police did not run toward the danger, the police in this instance did run toward the danger. And they did everything they could to keep our children secure and to keep our staff secure. So I want you to have some confidence in that. I will also tell you that there have been a couple of other incidents at South. And the third incident, my son texted me and said, we're on lockdown again. What's going on? And I said, well, do you hear shooting or screaming? And he said, no. And I said, are you scared? And he said, no, I'm annoyed. And that is alarming to me, that my son is annoyed when he hears that there could be an active shooter on his campus. So I've ramped it up in my house in terms of having conversations with my kids about what to do if there is an actual active shooter on campus. I don't want them to think that it's not real. I don't want them to think that, oh, this is another fake, or this is another drill and it could never happen to me. That is the purpose of training. I'm going to be a little bit sarcastic here when I talk about muscle memory. Muscle memory is, something that athletes engage in the same motion over and over and over again. Mac Jones will be the best quarterback in the NFL next year. Why? Because he practices the same thing over and over and over again. And these safety and security measures and the conversations we have surrounding them, I'd like for my children for it to become like muscle memory. If I'm in the gym at PE and I hear that there's an active shooter, this is where I would run. If I'm in my science class and there's an active shooter next door, this is where I will hide. If I'm in my math class and an active shooter is walking in the classroom, this is how I would fight. Run, hide, fight are the three trainings that we give to our students. Obviously, age appropriate. I've got 3 high schoolers. The conversations I have are much more frank than I would have with them if they were littles in younger classes. So anyways, not an upbeat board update. I try to be more upbeat. I try to sort of focus on some of the wins of the district or staff, but the Covenant School is weighing heavily on my mind. And I just want you to be assured, I can't speak for all board members. I never can do that. I'm one of 7, but I hear the conversation at the board table. And this is something that your entire school board is laser focused on. Those are my comments for this evening. I do see one raised hand, Chair Hertz.
Certainly, Jamie Merchant, you can ask a question or comment if you have one.
Yes, thank you. It was just a quick question to Board Member Patrica, and I do agree with her. I am fully confident in our school district and the sheriff's office, and I am okay sending my children to school. But I have seen on social media, nothing directed to any specific school in Lee County or even Lee County in general, but what is being labeled as a Trans Vengeance Day on Friday. And I was curious if the school district is taking any increased measures for school safety during something being advertised like that.
Ms. Merchant, that's an excellent question. I appreciate the question. You've raised something that I am not aware of. I'd like to ask Dr. Cupid McCoy, if you're aware, if you're not aware, regardless, now that it has been discussed in District Advisory Council, could you have someone on staff follow up and then perhaps send out a parent notification about what, if anything, we're doing?
Board Member Patrica, I will share this information with Chief Newland and the superintendent and get some direction from them as to how we move forward. If Ms. Merchant can repeat what she indicated, I missed what the social media post said.
Yes, and this is just what I'm seeing on social media, and it's very, it's not a fun topic. It was called Trans Vengeance Day, and it was a response to the Nashville tragedy.
Thank you.
And so that's all. And then to follow up though, I have had several conversations with the superintendent, and he has polled high schoolers, I think specifically, and a majority of the high schoolers feel safe at their school from a intruder, but I think that they are weary about their peers. So when something like that's being advertised on social media, it seems like a peer-to-peer conflict. So just something to bring to your attention.
Ms. Merchant, I really, really appreciate you bringing that to my attention. I have not been on social media today, so I haven't seen it. I will definitely be looking for it. And if I find a screenshot, if I find it, Dr. Cupid McCoy, I will screenshot it and send it to you. I really, really appreciate you bringing that up. Are there any other questions on this very somber topic? Chair Hertz, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Board Member Patrica. Next up, what we have is a presentation on the Sunshine Law from one of our board attorneys, Ms. Zupke.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing? I'm Shana Zupke, and I will be doing a presentation tonight. And this, I do have a question regarding the presentation. Will I be sharing that, or because I don't believe I have host powers, or if that will be done?
You do. I just co-hosted you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hold on just one moment while I get that share up. One moment. Okay. And I just want to verify, is everybody able to see the presentation? Okay. So again, I'm Shana Zupke. I'm one of the assistant school board attorneys, and I'm with the Office of Legal Services. Tonight, I'm here to talk to you mostly about the sunshine rules and community involvement with the committee and how it relates to our board policies. The board policy 1.19 is our community engagement policy. This is where the school board of Lee County believes that community engagement is an essential part of the district and running its business. So the 4 principles that we are going to kind of talk about and that are incorporated into this presentation is inclusiveness, the focus on efforts to increasing learning, building consensus around those efforts, and two-way communication, and how that aligns with the ability to with community involvement and board involvement. A school board advisory committee shall consist of qualified members from the community or students who are whose purpose shall be to provide input, advice, and support to the school board on topics that are specific to each committee. The District Advisory Council, also known as DAC, is their mission is in cooperation with the Lee County School Board will gather information and seek input from the schools and the community at large in an effort to advise the board and develop recommendations for constant improvement of our educational system. Our advisory committees, they must meet certain times of the year, September, October, November, January, February, March, and April. This year, as we all know, there was some disruption due to the hurricane, so the schedules were adjusted. Members can't miss, or the board members can't miss more than 3 meetings, and there's a selection for chair and vice chair. And we provide quarterly reports on the subjects to the superintendent. For the board involvement, we have a board liaison, which we already have had board member Ms. Patrica, who has spoken, gave some her comments. So we have our board liaison, and they also participate with those quarterly reports to the board during the briefing. The main topic that we're going to be talking about is how these meetings are incorporated through sunshine law. That is sunshine law is basically everything has to be done in the sun. So when you hear people specifically board members talking about that, it's the meetings and discussions bar between 2 or more school board members upon any issue must be at a public meeting. So that is why we have these meetings here. They are recorded, and we'll get into a little bit more details of that in just a moment. A discussion between members about matters that could foreseeably come before them for an action, meaning you already heard that this is an informational meeting tonight because of not meeting quorum. That is when there's an action, it needs to be done in the sun. So recorded, open to the public, and proper notice. And this could also fall under communications with telephones, email, Facebook, blogs, or other electronic means that could potentially violate the sunshine law. And these committees, as you are aware, they're more than just fact-finding. They're advising the board on things that may come before them for action. So these boards or these committees are very important for the business that the board will conduct, especially during action meetings. All meetings of any advisory group, which the DAC is part of the advisory group, must be open to the public at all times, properly noticed, and all the minutes to such these meetings should be recorded and open to the public for inspection. And we also must maintain these records. Sorry, hold on one moment. Members may participate in these meetings using interactive electronic meeting. That's, again, how we're meeting by Zoom, and to decide how we want to proceed for this meeting. As you know, DAC, right now we're meeting by Zoom, and that is something that has been done, I believe, for the last couple of years. No meetings, what this portion means is that there's going to be no meetings through use of intermediaries. So what that means is they're kind of like de facto meetings that a discussion happens, not purposeful, like at an action meeting. And then if you're violating it when you have that liaison and that the board member have those de facto discussions, but the items that you're talking about are something that there could be foreseeable action on. There's also subcommittees and breakout sessions. And we always want to make sure that we take extra caution with these, because even our breakout groups could potentially have sunshine ramifications. So that is why when we do have the breakout sessions, we still have to follow the rules of making sure that, again, it's properly noticed. I believe that's in our agenda item, and that also we are recording those portions of the meeting. There is some case law that gives some additional information on what the expectations are for these breakout sessions. And so you see the Florida citizens, there needs to be this where it discusses the collective inquiry and discussion stages of the breakout sessions. Then we also have Linares versus the District School Board of Pasco County found that breakout sessions violate the openness requirement used during sunshine when used during the government decision-making process. Again, if you're not following the proper protocol to make sure that those breakout sessions are still done, again, in the sun. And again, it gives a little further description of that, where the committee separated into two sections, middle school and high school, and the members of the public were unable to hear what was being said due to the multiple discussions. The Linares case emphasizes the importance of keeping discussions open and available to the public at all times, indicating that also whispering and note passing are not permitted. Again, these meetings are videotaped. We do have the public comment aspect. We encourage that there's professional decorum kept at all times during the meetings, and we will typically use Robert Rules of Order. There are potential penalties for violation of sunshine law. Again, with the violations, again, it could potentially rise to the level of where there'd be imprisonment or even fines or suspension. So there are potential violations that come with violating. This also goes to the public records. You already heard me kind of discuss like the minutes being available. That is a public record. So those are the types of items that can come through these committee meetings. All the materials made or received by the agency in connection with official business are used to perpetuate and communicate or formalize knowledge. So again, that's an example of that is the meeting minutes. Again, even this presentation. These are all part of the public records that can come from these meetings. Electronic communication can also be considered official business. So that includes like email and texts made and received by members in connection with official business. They can be public records. So that, again, we always exercise caution when making communication and things that are going on between the members of the committee. Again, same thing, we have certain retention laws and items that potentially, if we are not continuing to keep those records available, that aren't exempt or confidential under the law, there could be potential penalties for violations of that Public Records Act. So again, I want to thank you guys for your service. Are there any questions from the presentation?
Okay, I don't see any questions. Thank you very much for giving us that presentation on the Florida sunshine law, so everybody can know what they need to comply with. And I believe that takes us to the presentation on Naviance and Bright Futures from Ms. Oliveto and Ms. Brooks.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us here this evening as we go ahead and get it set up. I stop sharing so you're seeing my other screen. Give me just a moment. Okay, if you can give me a thumbs up if you are seeing my screen. Good to go? All right. Well, on behalf of Academic Services, Lori Brooks and I are very excited to be with you this evening to be presenting on two topics that we've been working on, both Naviance and Bright Futures. So my name is Candace Alivedo. I am the Director for High School Curriculum and Instruction, and Ms. Lori Brooks is the Director for School Counseling and Mental Health. So Naviance has been an initiative that we have been working on from the beginning of this school year to be able to launch for our secondary schools. So you would be seeing this moving forward into all of our secondary schools for next school year. And I believe you are seeing the entire presentation, including notes view. So let me end out of this for a moment so you don't have to see all of those pieces. This is what happens when you're displaying off of your multiple screens.
Mhm.
Only took 3 tonight, folks. So thank you for bearing with me. So what is Naviance and how will we be utilizing it in our 6 through 12 schools? And for our elementary DAC representatives on here, what does that mean for you all? This is really a tool that's a one-stop shop. It's going to be useful for our students, our counselors, our college and career specialists, but also our families. When we've been thinking about post-secondary for our high school students, and being able to set students up for success, we have a lot of different platforms that students go to, our families are going to, and our counselors in helping navigate. This puts everything together for a pathway for post-secondary. And that's really important. And you're going to hear Ms. Brooks and I emphasize that quite a few times. This is for post-secondary. So it's not just college, it's not just careers, it's all planning forward of what students are looking to do once they leave our school system. So we have some student features in here and counselor features that we are going to be talking about this evening. The ones highlighted in orange are pieces that you're going to hear us reference back to several times this evening, but they're also key features that were a need for us. One of the areas that we really appreciate Naviance working with us is scholarships. We've been hearing about scholarships and where do families find that information, and we will have everything inside of Naviance for it. We also have a need for our students as they're looking to go into the workplace on building resumes. This can be as early as when they're in high school and looking for jobs. This tool brings it together. It provides our students one place to have all of their information housed. In addition, for our school counselors, we needed a tool which compiled all information for students, but could also engage our parents and guardians. So you're going to see in here in a moment, this is not just a tool for our students and our counselors, but parents and guardians are able to log in and see exactly what their students are engaging with, see what the goals they set for themselves are and where their interests are. You'll be able to engage in their platform as well as the parent, and it's for all individual students. So if you have multiple students inside the district in secondary schools, you'll actually be able to view their reports separately. Lori, I'm going to move it over to you.
Thank you so much. And Naviance really evolved from, as Candace stated, the need and desire of the district to have a platform that houses all things related to post-secondary planning for students, and also have parent access to that at the ready. So really the premise for this has been, though, are our students ready? And we know that national research shows that students typically are not ready for life after high school. And according to ACT, their most recent study of statistics that we were able to locate in 2019 indicated that 41% of high school seniors have foundational work readiness skills. and 76% of the 2018 high school graduates said they aspired to attend college, but only 65% actually enrolled. So beyond college and career planning, we also want to be able to track our students with what happens to them after they leave us. Where do they actually land in August and beyond after they commence and graduate in June? So a snapshot of our graduates' future plans from 2022. We did a 3-year trend, and this is a survey that gauges seniors right before they exit us. Sometimes it's at commencement practice, other times it's the week prior, but typically in that last week of their lives with us in the high school setting, we administer a self-report survey to them about their plans for post-secondary. And the categories are on this bar chart. I am going to attend a 4-year college, a 2-year college, a technical college, enter the workforce directly, enter the U.S. Armed Forces, uncertain, or other. And other really does capture students that their option may not be listed here. The uncertain, however, is really what keeps us up at night, because even if we have one uncertain student, it is one too many. And we recognize and own the fact that we need to provide tools for our students and also our parents, because we're all playing on Team Kid. This is a team sport, helping our students through K-12, pre-K-12, and finding their path. And no student should leave high school uncertain of what they want to do. And so that right there, and Candace, can you just thank you that we've highlighted with this highlight is the uncertain. That's our target population of students, that we want them in one of these other categories saying, I know what I am doing after high school. So this also aligns to Envision 2030. As you can see on the left, these are some of the features in Naviance, and they really align with our strategic plan for not only student achievement, but making sure our students are ready for life.
So then moving forward, what does Naviance really focus on? What our students are going to be engaging in this platform? You're seeing on the screen there 6 areas which Naviance focuses solely on, and this builds over their entire secondary career. So starting in 6th grade all the way through 12th grade and that commencement piece of there. You'll see there's some of those self-discovery pieces, and this is really garnering what are my interests? What am I looking to do? What do I know? Success skills, some of those soft skills pieces, but there's networking components in here where students are able to engage, and Lori's going to talk about it later on in one of our other slides, engage with universities and career pathways where it's not just virtual pieces, but they can set up actual meetings with individuals, which all dovetails into that career planning, college planning. But that big one, especially for those of you on this call, is financial planning. Sometimes what we are hearing is families are just unaware of the cost, and then what are the tools to be able to support. So everything lives inside of this platform to be able to support a student. The student portal is very easy to navigate, and it's going to be easy for our students when they log in. That features they're used to seeing, they're able to jump right in with the way it's set up. So it'll be located on their launch pad like all of our other applications. It'll be a single sign-on feature that they have there. And when they log in, it greets them right away. You'll see in that bottom left where it has important to-dos. This is where they have any tasks that were assigned. If they need to be submitting an application, if a scholarship is coming up, if their college and career specialist or their counselor has said you need to ask for recommendations, that's going to pop there. They'll also see though their favorites. So what are they thinking about inside of that student discovery where they're trying to determine what are their interests for post-secondary? Those are going to be things that they can mark as their favorites. And then if there's anything new for them to do, there's going to be surveys that are built inside of the platform that help the students engage better with the platform. So while that's the student side, one of the pieces we first started with, though, is how important it is for our parents and guardians to also be in partnership in all of this, because the goal is post-secondary and building along the way. So families will have a portal that looks exactly like the students. The difference will be, and you'll see it noted here in the upper right, is parents or guardians can flip between. So you can see multiple students. So if I have a 7th grader and a 10th grader, I can alternate between them. For our families where multiple languages are spoken, there's a tool in here where the family selects on their gear, and this can be translated into 87 different languages. So while the student may be engaging with all of the resources in English, families can go ahead and translate all of the documents into 87 languages. They're able to see the goals their student is setting. They're able to see the course planner of, we'll talk about later, what are the upcoming courses in which are being selected. They'll be able to see what are the colleges that they marked, if that's an interest for them, scholarships that are coming over. So families are able to engage completely inside of this platform alongside their student.
And Candace, just to piggyback on a couple of those features as well, parents will have ready access to this electronically on their tablet, their phone, their laptop, and also they will be able to see the ways that the school counselors and college and career specialists are directly communicating to their student, and also they can communicate directly to the parent with reminders and those little hey, have you noticed this scholarship, because I know you're interested in this particular post-secondary career or pathway. So the parents will be able to also see that, and it's 24/7 access, and they'll be able to communicate back to their school counselor and college and career specialist. So I think as we move into some of the pieces, remember this continuum, we're talking about career planning. And there is sometimes this assumption that school counselors and schools assume every child's going to college. And really what we train our counselors and college and career specialists to do is ask a student, have you thought about your future plans? Because the future plan and their self-discovery of what they may be good at doing, but also what they enjoy doing, then drives those next pieces of exploration. And that may or may not involve college, but it does involve, how do I prepare for that post-secondary pathway? So that is always our goal. And not only are we trying to prepare our students academically, but as we all know, as parents and educators on this Zoom, there's so much more to their development and their life readiness. So part of Naviance is also building those essential skills that students will need. We talk about building grit and resiliency, and some of you may have seen that the Department of Education just adopted a more expanded resiliency piece for our students. Well, this particular application and Naviance supports, you can see on the screen, students will read about overcoming obstacles and then think about ways that they can overcome obstacles. This is just an example that builds out some of these skills so that they can overcome and fulfill their life goals. And so here's a little bit more about self-discovery. This is just a sample of what our students may engage in with some of those, as we call them, the soft skills. They can analyze their intelligences and the way they learn and perceive information, their personality. Are they an extrovert? Do they have the intuition side, etc.? And so you will have access to this as parents as well to see these. How has your child engaged in each of these, and have conversations with them around that, and strengths explorers, etc. And then that's further drilled into career readiness. So really, how are you aligning as a student your interests and skills and your potential pathways, and then therefore potential careers? For instance, if we like to be in a helping profession, we might want to be a teacher, a nurse, a firefighter. There's a lot of helping professions, but how do you align that with a career pathways of your choice? And then what academic planning do you need to do backwards in order to best prepare yourself for those career goals? And for some pathways that will lead to post-secondary school. And in this case, Naviance will call it college readiness. And this is a good place too, to remind all that college includes college and the technical schools. It includes state colleges, universities, and this is going to be accessed nationwide to all of those types of schools. This tool will also promote the equity of opportunity because it puts at parent fingertips and students, and sometimes on their own time. On their own time, all the time, 24/7, they can access all of these tools. And so with the college exploration tool, again, it's multiple access to different post-secondary schools. But if I'm a student, I can look at institution characteristics. I can look at what degree programs they offer. Are they 2-year, 4-year? Are they a technical school, a university, public, private, etc.? And then also I can look at the size of the school and their freshman profile. A lot of our universities will say, well, you need a minimum GPA of this or above, but really, what have they taken in their incoming freshman class? Because that's the realistic benchmark of what they're truly looking for in their students. And that's where you'll see Johnson University, UNF, Flagler, and you can see there's a little yellow box on your screen that's highlighting at University of North Florida, kind of that average GPA, SAT and ACT, and then you can see the column for you. That's the students' individual benchmarks that they're presenting with at this point. So if they need to aim a little bit higher and they're doing this as a freshman at the end of semester 1, they know, oh, I need to step that up, or I'm doing just fine, I need to keep that up. And then there are profiles for each college. So each post-secondary school, the average price of attendance, their graduation rate, acceptance rates, there's a profile for every school that students and parents are able to do that deeper dive into to get to know the school, especially as they're planning their school visits. In addition, and this is one of these, actually, these 2 points are very powerful, is that students have access to representatives that are ready and eager to schedule meetings with them. So it's not just, hey, I can point and click. You can actually interact with each post-secondary school, schedule meetings, schedule live one-to-ones. They may have events that are internet-based, where they host students that are interested in their schools. So it actually turns into more of that live one-on-one or smaller group interaction with post-secondary schools of their choice. And one of the biggest pieces that excites me for school counselors and college and career specialists about our students is we will finally be able to take all of our scholarships and place them into a district repository that all students can access. And each of our high schools will not need to any longer post them individually in their own Google Classrooms.
So as we make the transition to the next slide, one of the things we're going to talk about is the course planner and the credits. But if you notice while we stay here on this slide, on the right-hand side in this screen, for this student and that connection, when it talks about graduation and the requirements, you can actually see 4 English credits. How many has the student earned? What's in their plan? What still needs to be accomplished? And this all tailors to this next slide here of the course planner. So as students are thinking about what they want to do post-secondary and being on-time graduates, they will be able to build out through here, what are the courses I need to be successful, not only for an on-time graduate, but if there's a specific track that I'm interested in. So if there's something related to our career and technical courses, our academies, that I'm looking to get my fire certification, do I have all of the necessary courses planned out and mapped out to walk away from high school with that certification? If I am interested and at a school that offers the International Baccalaureate diploma, am I on track to be able to earn that IB diploma? Am I registered for all the appropriate classes? This becomes critical for our assistant principals of curriculum and you as parents, guardians on the call as well, because now you'll be able to engage with your student of what's their long-term planning. They will be able to set a multi-year progression. So if I'm thinking 9-12, the freshmen as they come in next year will be able to set a 4-year plan for themselves, track and monitor how they're doing in real time on those courses to be successful for an on-time graduation. So this is going to become a tool that is extremely helpful considering our advanced program placements that we have, our over 50 CTE programs, and it really pulls everything together for our secondary students to be successful as they think about long-term planning. The other piece of this that helps put everything into one place is the student readiness report. These are shareable, personalized, they are individual to each student, and it puts everything in a one-stop shop. So if you'll notice the demo one that is here on the screen, this is a grade 11 student. Their desire is a post-secondary plan of a 4-year degree, what their current GPA is. It pulls in all of the SAT, ACT scores that we have on file and college prep courses that are being taken. So this is easily to inform our counselors, college career specialists, but also our parents. So it's one inclusive view of everything that's included in there. So as we take those pieces of Naviance though, and we think about this platform becoming our one-stop shop for 6 through 12 for planning purposes for post-secondary, what ties directly into this is our Florida Bright Futures. And Lori is going to move us over to what that is.
Hey, before you all move on to that, do you mind if I ask a quick question on Naviance?
Absolutely.
Hey, thanks. So I saw kind of one of the earlier slides on, it looked like you had like the Myers-Briggs personality types for students to look at, and a couple other resources kind of helping them see who they are and what they're looking at. My question is, since we're starting this off early for middle schoolers, stuff like personality, some of that stuff changes over time. Is there coaching that's going to happen along with this? The self-discovery, that's the one right there, I think. Yeah, because you can see the Myers-Briggs personality information in there, the career interest, all these things. Great stuff, amazing tools. But what coaching is going to happen to our middle schoolers, maybe even freshmen and sophomores that are like, hey, this is where you're at today. And it's good to make goals off of where you're at today, but understand that these will change as you grow and learn more and kind of figure out who you are. Because what I'd hate is a 7th grader to look and say, oh, I'm an ENTJ or I'm an INT, INT, whatever, I can't remember the other last letters are, and think that that's what they're going to be for the rest of their life, and without that appropriate coaching.
So I can go ahead and begin, and then Lori, if there's anything additional you want to add to it. This grows with the students every year. So they actually can take these surveys multiple times, and as a district, we get to decide when and which ones are released. So exactly to your point, Gabe, we can have a student take their interest beginning in middle school, but then as they matriculate through middle school, they take it again. And then by the time they get in high school. So the goal is really in high school, as they're reaching into that 10th, 11th grade year where the classes truly differentiate and you want to make sure you're on that path for the courses for your post-secondary and what you're interested in, you're set there. So it is a tool for both our counselors and college career specialists, but knowing that they will be able to engage with these surveys multiple times over their secondary career. So you're right on, it would not be a one-time deal, and there would be that side-by-side coaching and counseling with it.
Well, that's great and great to hear. And I know you guys are awesome to have a plan. This is just a brief PowerPoint, but my true concern is for the students that are going to be really interested in this right off the bat and won't need to be pulled into it. They're going to find this on the launch pad and fill it out probably before we even realize that they see it, right? Like, it's so intuitive. I could think of a couple kids, my oldest, of course, included in that, where he's just going to find it. And so that's where I think it's really important as this is rolled out, the students find out, hey, know that this is just one data point in time. And it's a really complex concept for even a high schooler to get. It's like, hey, things will change. This isn't a concrete world and your personality isn't concrete, but this is an important step toward building those goals.
So you
I
make
know
a
you guys are on
great
top of it.
point. No, you make a great point, Gabe. So when it rolls out, they'll get to see an icon there, but they won't get to do anything inside of it without it being assigned to them. So at that earlier slide where there were the to dos, we get to assign out and schools get to decide which surveys and when. So even our most overzealous students who are like, let me click around and begin to play, they can't take any of the survey pieces or these self-discoveries without it being released to them. Now, can they go look at careers that are out there in colleges? Yes, because those are completely open. But anything that deals with the self-discovery pieces, those will all be guided and with a educator, counselor, and the schools will release it. That's why they're ready to have those conversations. So I hope that helps as well. And I know that's not clear inside there, but yeah, they won't get to just see these icons off the bat. They will be assigned out to them.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Lori, is there anything I missed that you would like to add to any of that?
Actually, I believe you covered it all. And one of the topics we may not have really unpacked, and then there is a question in the chat as well. And I also see hands up, and I don't want to take facilitation away from Mr. Hertz. But one of the items that bears mentioning is the training. So we will be deploying the deeper training to the college and career specialists, the school counselors, as far as kind of the champions within the school. However, there will be information for students to train them, teachers, parents, so that everyone is made aware of this tool, but also the ways in which they can use it. So I wanted to mention that there is a strategic rollout of training when we deploy this for all stakeholders.
And to dovetail onto what Lori said, that's one of our questions coming to the end as we think about our planning for summer and what does that mean for parents? What would be a best way? Because we know this will be new for all secondary. So what would be some feedback and input that would be helpful in learning about Naviance, because both students and parents and guardians will have access at the same time. So we want to go slow to go fast. So it's very useful and does everything we're hoping to do of package this in a nice one-stop shop.
And Ms. Kane, if you are a member of DAC, I see that you didn't change your name to show your designation. If you're one of the DAC members, I'll trust your honesty on that. Feel free to ask a question about the Naviance presentation.
Hi, good evening. Yes, I'm Leanne Kane. I'm currently the principal at Trafalgar Middle School. So I am here today representing all of the middle school principals. And first, I just want to say thank you to Candace and Lori for an awesome presentation. So thank you as always. You guys do such a great job. But as I'm representing middle schools and I want to be able to carry information back to all of our principals, I get my question was around the training piece, which you've already answered. So thank you for that. And I just want to add that I really love the way that we have, rolled out the Wellness Wednesdays. And I could see this in a middle school environment kind of rolling out in a similar way, that information about how to navigate this site, how to utilize this site, how to maybe release surveys and so forth could maybe be on a similar type of a schedule and a plan, because that's been very successful in our school. So I just wanted to share that as we think about introducing this to middle schools. Thank you so much, you guys.
Thank you.
And then Lori, you said there was a question in the chat.
Yes, and it's regarding course planner. Will the course planner assist with dual enrollment to earn an AA degree as well as a high school diploma?
So we haven't explored that portion of course planner with our partners at Naviance as we've been setting it up. We've been setting it up very specifically to state requirements and then local requirements. So like for the ACE Cambridge diplomas, what are the specific buckets and courses that need to be taken to be able to meet those? But I love that question and I've written it down. Lori and I have the opportunity of meeting with our partners at Naviance on a bi-weekly basis as we're getting ready to finally make our final push and do a release to be able to host those trainings with our schools on it. So that will be a question we can take back to them. And I'm sure we will also follow up and we'll put this one in the notes and get an answer provided so it goes back out to all of the DAC members. And then Mr. Tyler, we see your hand is up.
Thank you. I just have a question about the course planner. Because I, because I know students have access to see what courses they've taken in Focus instead of parents. Will that be in concurrence with Focus so they can use both of them to double check? And also with test scores and stuff, be able to look at both Focus and Aviance and see which one and see where they're at. And if are they both gonna be, let's say I pull up, I get my student takes SAT as a junior, and the SAT scores come in, it's gonna show both on Aviance and on Focus.
It is. So it's designed that it talks back and forth with Focus. So that's been what we've been working on for this really first semester of the school year, is ensuring that all of our data that's inside of Focus is a direct match inside of Naviance. So yes, they will see their courses, completions, test history. It'll be the same data that's inside Focus will be inside Naviance. That way it can be applied to their planning for post-secondary.
All right, so this is Naviance a redundance for Focus as far as that part goes, or is it a completely different program where, because you can look at, you can pull up Focus, you can see what tests you've done and see where you're at in courses and stuff that you may or may not need. So
it's redundant in the fact that the information is in both places, but the purpose and how it's utilized is very different. So that's just one small component of Naviance, is having that course planner in there, but it allows a student, as they're thinking about post-secondary, to plan out differently and be able to see their 4-year picture, very specific to their interests and as they're growing with it. Those pieces, it also allows that we didn't hit a lot on here, but we'll provide the full length training that Lori and I did for our board that talks about scholarships. So there's scholarship page there, and being able to get letters of recommendations for post-secondary, if their college acceptances and those needs. So it pulls all those other components together that right now we do in multiple platforms. So while the data is there in 2, all the other components of Naviance pull together what we have to go to 4 other platforms to be able to do. Lori, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I do. The benefit of Course Planner and all of the pieces of Focus, including your SAT, ACT, et cetera, scores pushing into Naviance, is the fact that as students are researching post-secondary, their profile pulls into that alignment. As we indicated earlier, I think it was with FAU and, you know, in a couple other schools, it shows the student's profile and where they stand when compared to their, there it is, compared to the profile of the freshman class. So there, like Candace said, it is the use of the information that actually makes it powerful within Naviance. I would not say that Naviance should replace a parent or a student going into Focus for that information. It's just we push into Naviance to make this a more robust planning tool, because they have all their information right there, and it populates into these tools when they're looking at college profiles, et cetera. Likewise, when they apply to school, students and parents can see the deadlines for each school, what they have completed thus far, what is left to be completed, so that parents can help their children along in that process. Because as a high school counselor, I even found some of my most high achieving and diligent students sometimes had a little bit of paralysis in this process, and they weren't pushing forward. And I could monitor it as a counselor as well, to help them say, hey, your deadline's coming up. I don't see you, you know, what can I do to help you? But parents now have that ability as well.
So, and right here, I went back to the screen that Lori was referencing. It's hard to see because it's tiny right in here, but
And
for
the
the student
GPA.
profile, it shows the average that's accepted to the University of North Florida, and then where that student is. So they can see there's a little mark next to the GPA. That's an area of opportunity for that student. So they know where they really need to push if this is a school that they're interested in going to.
So this will be used as a tool to help the overworked counselors in the schools be able to help the students a little bit better also.
It's an information resource for students and it's right at their fingertips. So if you can envision then, yes, in short, the schools are ensuring that we've got students using these tools so that when the counselor has those conversations, we can look at this screen and we don't have to remind ourselves or have it written on paper. Where did you apply? Where are you in the process? It's all here. In addition, we can also look at students and push out those double checks to them and their parents saying, way to go, you applied. Now we need to get your transcript sent. So let's set a reminder to get that done. So yes, it will help everyone that's basically on overload trying to figure out how to help our students and even help the students, because it puts everything in this interface, but it will not eliminate the individual conversations with students. It will actually make them more robust and meaningful.
Okay, thank you.
Lori, I noticed we seem to have a couple more questions in the chat. If you wouldn't mind calling them out just because I can't see them with the videos on.
I actually, I only see the one we answered.
Sorry, I had sent a direct one. Let me read it out for you. It was, will parents be able to use the same login for both Naviance and Focus?
And
So sorry, Lori, go ahead.
I may have, it's okay. If you heard the whole question, Candace, please go ahead.
It's the login for parents for Focus and Naviance if it's the same login information. So we're working on setting up those parent accounts now with Naviance. That is our request because the information we're utilizing is what's coming directly out of Focus. So that is where the pieces that we are working on with them now. So we will write it down and even let them know it's a request from this group, that if we can really make that happen, it would be helpful for our stakeholders. Before we move on to Bright Futures, then, are there any other questions?
And with how our meeting's going tonight, I might encourage people, if they had any other questions, to ask them now. We can, you know, when they finish, we can do an informal poll if we'll actually need to go to our breakout groups tonight, if people think that'll be appropriate given our, you know, our stance on the meeting tonight. And I think we've had some good back and forth here. So if you have other questions, you can, perhaps what we'll do is let them do the Bright Futures, and then we can see how many questions we have about that, and whether we just all stay together tonight and ask some additional questions, or we actually go to those breakout sessions. And Lori and Candace, feel free to go ahead and call on the folks and facilitate that. There's not a need for me to jump in and out there.
Sure thing. All right, Jessica, we see your hand is up.
I just wondered, from not only a parent perspective, but also a teacher perspective, will teachers also, I know you mentioned counselors will be able to see this, but I could see some advantages and time saving for teachers that do some of these self-awareness quizzes in class to find out about students' intelligences and what the best way they learn is. Will teachers also be able to access this information, or will it be limited to parents and counselors?
Yes, teachers will also have access to this. So the access level will look very different, obviously, from the counselors and the college and career specialists, but teachers will have access to it as well. So you can help support your students as well. So we know how important it is for students to have multiple encounters and mentors. So our teachers, we feel the same way, to be able to support them along the pathway and have their goals and be that champion for them. So yes, they will. The other nice part is, won't it be great when they ask you for a letter of recommendation, that it's right there in the portal and you'll be able to take care of it in one place. So yes, there'll be a rollout for our teachers. You heard Lori say, once we do our counselors and college career specialists after principals, then we'll move into teachers at the beginning of next year.
And as you know, as a teacher too, Jessica, we encourage our students throughout high school to create their brag sheet so that when they would like a letter of recommendation, we have some additional information besides kind of their character, their integrity in the classroom, and they'll be able to build that in Naviance and then just deploy that right there when they make that request of that teacher or that individual.
That'll be wonderful.
Won't it?
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I interrupted someone.
It was just me, Lori. I was going to say, if you want to go ahead and kick off the Bright Futures
Yes.
section, I will move us forward.
Okay, thank you. I would like a time check so that I do not go over and I honor everyone's time. So if you don't mind just giving me a time frame, that would be wonderful.
I think what we're going to do, I'll make the executive decision, seeing we're getting additional questions. Why don't you go ahead and take like 20, does 20 minutes sufficient for you?
That's fine. Absolutely.
And then we'll just solicit questions and feedback from the group at large. And that way we'll more efficiently use our time, since we started late waiting to see if we could get a quorum.
Okay, thank you. All right. I just want to mark my end time. I love a lot of words, so I'm going to practice brevity. Just to let everyone know on the Zoom that all of this information, I will go pretty quickly, and it's a lot, but all of this information is available, and we'll give you the website and the access points so that you can review it, and it's all on the slides. So what is Florida Bright Futures? It's a lottery funded scholarship for Florida high school graduates, and it rewards them for high academic achievement. What I really like as a school counselor, former school counselor, about Bright Futures is, and I would tell my high school students, you are competing against yourself. You do not need to be the one student selected or the highest achieving student. Here are the benchmarks. You can meet them, and there are levels of benchmarks. So you basically pick your program and you aim. And if you make those benchmarks, you get the money. So here's the initial eligibility. Students need to be a Florida resident and a U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen. And the eligible non-citizen is determined by the student's post-secondary institution, which typically is standardized across the state of Florida anyway. Students in their senior year need to complete a short application called the Florida Financial Aid Application, not to be confused with FAFSA, even though we highly encourage FAFSA, and it will be required at some point, but related to Bright Futures, it's their Florida Financial Aid Application. They also need to earn a Florida high school diploma from a Florida public high school. There are some opportunities for homeschool students. It's a separate process from the public school system, and also for students who receive a GED. Students also must not have been found guilty of or pled no contest to a felony charge. They need to be accepted by and enroll as a degree or certificate seeking student at a Florida public or independent post-secondary institution within 5 years of graduation. So they have a 5-year grace period within which they can enact their eligibility. If they have earned this scholarship by the time they graduate, they have 5 years to determine if they want to use it. And this is at Florida public post-secondary schools, from technical colleges, state colleges, universities. So technical colleges are covered. And then they need to enroll in at least 6 non-remedial semester hours, or if they're going to a school that does quarter hours, or a lot of our tech colleges do clock hours per term. So there are 4 awards, and this is where we get into a lot of detail, and I'm going to really skip across the surface of this. The first 2 blocks in this chart, the Florida Academic Scholars Award, or what we call FAS, and the Florida Medallion Scholars Award, what we call FMS, are the 2 most popular scholarships that students will pursue. They basically are academically based, and the criteria will be on the future slides. But it covers, if you achieve the academic scholars or FAS, 100% of your tuition at a public post-secondary school is covered. If you achieve the Florida Medallion or FMS, 75% of your tuition at a 4-year university is covered. However, 100% of your tuition at a 2-year college is covered. Now, both of these scholarships, you can maintain eligibility for 4 years. So if I started a 2-year college, I'll give you the example, FSW, and I have Florida Medallion, 100% of my tuition is covered. When I matriculate to Florida State as a junior, then 75% of my tuition for my junior and senior year will be covered with Florida Medallion. If I earn the academic scholar, no matter where I go, whether it's state college or public university, I have 100% tuition coverage. The last two awards, the Florida Gold Seal CAPE Scholars and Florida Gold Seal Vocational Scholars, are also excellent opportunities for our students. They're highly specific in both their criteria. It's a little easier to achieve. It's less rigorous to achieve these two scholarships. However, it's more fine detail that you have to meet, and we'll get into that in a few minutes. But these two scholarships are unique for an applied science degree or a technical degree. So you have to be certain that your career path is going to go in that direction. And also you want to pay attention to the specificity of the high school requirements to earn the Gold Seal CAPE Scholars or the vocational scholars. Because of that, and a lot of students, while they're in high school, are uncertain of their future plans. They try for the bigger umbrella scholarships, but we really work hard on focusing our kids on understanding all four of these, because all four of them give them money for college. So as we unpack a little further, the Florida Academic Scholar and the Medallion, these are the specific requirements. They're a little bit different. However, the 16 high school course credits, they align with state university core courses. They're identical for both scholarships, but you'll notice in the third column, the high school weighted Bright Futures GPA is different. So for the highest award, the FAS, it's 3.5 unweighted. For the Medallion, it's 3.0. Now we have to remind our students that this is not their cumulative high school grade point average. Rather, it is their grade point average that is a Bright Futures grade point average based on these core courses. So we're consistently advising our students as they move through high school that here's your cumulative grade point average. However, Bright Futures, you need to know this GPA because this is the target for this particular scholarship program because it's a recalculated GPA. The SAT and ACT scores are slightly different, and I won't unpack all of that, but you can see they're higher for Florida Academic. They're a little less rigorous for Florida Medallion. And then we have volunteer service hours or paid work hours. The students cannot intermingle them. They need to either have 75 or 100 volunteer service hours for either of those scholarships. You can see the thresholds, or 100 paid work hours for either one. So it's 100 paid work hours for those two scholarships, but you'll notice the volunteer service hours are a little bit different between academic and Medallion. And again, this is a lot of information and I'm going quickly, but you'll have these slides and the website. So let's talk a little bit about volunteer service hour requirements. Historically, students had to submit only volunteer service hours. It only started this school year that they could do 100 paid work hours in lieu of volunteer service hours. Now, Bright Futures in state statute is highly specific about the way that we, the process students need to follow for pre-approval for their volunteer service hours and then having them submitted and approved. And we can only track up to 100 in our student information system. And believe me, we tell kids, go beyond that, please. The more volunteer service hours you have, the stronger candidacy you have for state university admissions and for other private scholarships. So we recommend more hours. However, we're only allowed to, in state statute, to monitor and submit up to 100 in our systems, but because it's all about Bright Futures. That's where the Navient's personal resume piece comes in for our students to keep building out what else have you done? What else have you done? And then they build that as they go through high school. So their brag sheet or their resume encompasses all of that when they apply for their university admissions or post-secondary and also the scholarships. Now, there are other ways to qualify for Florida Academic Scholars and also for Florida Medallion. If you're a National Merit Finalist or Scholar, you no longer need to meet specific SAT or ACT scores. You still need your volunteer service hours or paid work hours. Also, if you complete the ACE or IB diploma, if you earn the diploma from Cambridge or from the International Baccalaureate Organization, you also are excused from the thresholds for college entrance exams, but all other requirements apply. Now, we have some students that may not get their Cambridge ACE diploma or their IB diploma from the International Baccalaureate Organization. However, they complete the ACE curriculum in their high school or their IB curriculum. In that case, the standard thresholds still apply for testing, and of course, the hours apply. So if you earn the top 4, those in blue, you don't need to meet test scores. You can bypass that. I really don't have time to go through a lot of the Gold Seal CAPE and the Gold Seal Vocational, but I do want you to understand and recognize that you can see that there's more specificity. It's not necessarily grade point average, test scores, and volunteer service hours. These particular scholarships I'm going to talk about have highly specific criteria attached. Now, there's only 30 service hours attached to this CAPE Scholars, but you can see that it's based on industry certifications earned. The Gold Seal Vocational Scholars, we have 5 bullet points, right? So there is quite a bit that students need to pay attention to and counselors need to monitor in order to earn the Gold Seal Vocational Scholarship as well. Again, it's 30 service hours, but they have a lot more criteria. Yes, it might be a not as rigorous cumulative GPA for Bright Futures. However, they have to check more boxes to get that done. So it's highly specific.
So as Lori mentioned, there's a lot of information on these slides, and Bright Futures is very detailed in what we need students to be able to do and what counselors spend time doing and college career specialists spend time doing in helping prepare students for it. But there's also the website that's here on the screen, and it's linked inside the presentation when you received it here. This website is the website in which we send our families to gather more information. Everything we presented today comes from these 4 chapters, chapter 1, 2, the Bright Futures flyers and additional resources. So these 4 areas. You'll notice we didn't talk about chapter 3, which is renewal eligibility, because this is after the fact. So as we're talking about what students need to be eligible for Bright Futures, we really want to point families back here in addition to their resources at the schools. So looking at this communication and local support, what are some of the pieces that we're doing to ensure we're getting this information out, but also providing students with greater opportunities to earn Bright Futures? So you've heard Lori and I really talk about college and career specialists. We are back on, this is only year 2 of us having our college and career specialists at the high schools, and they are instrumental in partnering with our counselors in all of this work. So hopefully you've heard from the Naviance conversation and Bright Futures, they're working in partnership with our counselors. Their role is really to ensure that students are applying. So while this isn't all of their work, this is a small part of it. It's really the helping. So our counselors do all of the advising, but the college and career specialists are the ones to go, let's get it across the finish line. Curriculum expansion is really important. And you heard Lori talk about it back on slide 28, and we're going to see some data in a moment as well. But there was the slide on the other ways to qualify, that if students earned an advanced diploma, either an ACE diploma or an IB diploma, it waives those ACT, SAT scores. So one of the things that the district has done this year, we have all 15 of our traditional high schools that have an advanced diploma pathway. So last year we began the transition to add additional courses, but last year we had 4 high schools that were IB diploma high schools and 4 high schools that were Cambridge high schools. So that was only 8 out of our traditional 15. Now we are able to say out of the 22-23 school year, all 15 high schools have a diploma pathway that would help students earn bright futures in another manner. We've also expanded national assessment options. So we know students need to take ACT, SAT, and sometimes that's a challenge for them on those Saturdays. Even though our high schools are host sites and we help students with the waivers, we know sometimes that's a challenge. We've added for our juniors this school year, there's a testing opportunity in both the fall and the spring. So this is a first time for us. We've always previously done one, but now we've added 2 opportunities. And this is really important because historically we've offered non-college reportable. So things that help meet graduation concordant requirements, but this is for college reportable and directly supports our students earning bright futures. In terms of financial aid nights, we can't speak highly enough of our foundation. So our foundation partners with all of our local high schools to provide financial aid nights, both face-to-face and Zoom. They promote those through our school messenger, through their Facebook pages, through their Twitter pages, and they'll also go in directly and work on site at the high school locations, on site at their foundation. So they try to offer a multitude of ways for families to become engaged. In addition, Lori Brooks trains our college career specialists and our counselors at the beginning of every single school year. So there are annual trainings that happen locally because legislation is ever changing. So we want to make sure that we are up to date in what the requirements are and that our counselors and college career specialists are knowledgeable, because at our schools, those are the first lines of contact for our families and our students. Something new that we launched last summer was our National Development Program. We really, when we think about world class and students excelling, we would love to see more of our students go and try to achieve national merit designation, but also awards beyond state. So we have taken our top students from 10th grade based upon their PSAT. And during the summer, we offer them an opportunity to engage virtually with certified teachers on ACT and SAT supports. That way, in the fall of their junior year, they take that PSAT that is the foot in the door for qualifying for national merit. Naviance, we just talked about quite a bit. This is our Peace one-stop shop, so we won't spend any more time on that. And then student and family resources. We always say, go to your school, talk to your counselors first, but then in addition, that website we just talked about, that's really a valuable tool for families. So as we look at what we want to show here, though, is a little bit of a snapshot of Lee County. And this data here is of last year's graduating seniors. And to orient you to this graph, I'd like you to look at all the way to the left, the orange bar graph here. And this is all of our high schools. And by all, it's our 14 traditional high schools and Lee Virtual School. While you heard me say that we have 15, last year Gateway did not have a graduating class yet. This will be Lee Gateway's first graduating class this year. So this data here for 15 schools is our 14 traditional high schools and LVS. What you're seeing is the makeup of our district. So last year's seniors, roughly 15% of them qualified for some form of bright futures. This dark orange box here, these are our students that had met that scholarship of 100%. So as we look at that there, about 10% of our students earned the 100% award. Moving up the bar graph, we had roughly 4% that earned the 75%. And then we look at our Gold Seal Cape and our Gold Seal Vocational. So this number as a district, we would really like to see it grow. So again, why we've included Naviance in there, why we're looking to offer more trainings. But when we break down our 15 high schools and look at our 4 schools that offer ACE programs and our 4 high schools that offered sponsored IB programs, we notice that there is a direct correlation in the number of students who are able to earn that full 100% top level for Bright Futures. And again, going back to what Lori said, it's because that requirement for the SAT scores becomes waived. They still need to meet their volunteer hours. So I want to make sure everyone hears that, but no longer do they need a test score. So if you think about that chart that we saw earlier, that test score for SAT is at 1330 and 1340. That's the mid 80th percentile. So this gives students another opportunity to earn at 100%. Without having a test score that we are continuing to see grow every year. When you compare those 8 schools to our 7 schools that did not have diploma pathways, you'll see that we have 2% of our students in which earned 100%. So again, this was why we made the push as a district to ensure that we can say now all 15 of our high schools offer an advanced diploma pathway to help really promote this and push seeing more of our students qualify for Bright Futures. So with that, that brings Lori and I to the end of our presentation this evening. These were the questions that we had asked, but we are willing to, with keeping it together based upon what Mr. Hurt said, open it up for additional questions or also feedback. We really wanted to hear needs and thoughts about rolling this out as we make the transition to Naviance, but also now that you've heard Bright Futures, what additional information would be helpful? And Lori, are you able to open the chat? I can see the number growing, but my computer will not allow me to click on that with my.
Yes.
Thank you.
And the only chat that I have thus far is Mr. Hertz's reminder that people can put questions in the chat and we will respond, or comments. If there's any private comments that are being sent, they're not being sent to me. So I don't see anything additional.
All right.
Do any of our members have any comments or feedbacks on ways besides, obviously, I'm sure they're well aware of the traditional, that I'll certainly encourage them to share information, links to Naviance through the short URLs and I don't know if it's still called School Messenger, but the School Messenger texting, where you actually in the text message get the URL to take you right to the program, not a text message that says, go see an email we sent you today to find the link in the PDF that tells you how to get to the place. I bet if you did a study, you'd find you get much better interaction with your links when you put them right in the text messages. I know personally, I find that very helpful, and that's what I've heard from folks. And we have some comments. How about Ms. Merchant first, and then Ms. Rapacito?
Yeah, I was just reviewing the questions, and I have 2 high schoolers, and I feel like the high schools are obviously very large in student population, and the guidance counselors are obviously, as they should, focused on seniors and what they need to graduate. But is there maybe a way in freshman and sophomore and junior years, maybe a beginning to set up not individual meetings, but like class meetings, like they do for senior night, to have the guidance counselors or these principals or whomever kind of go over the Bright Futures and Naviance, especially Bright Futures, because that seems like an important opportunity for students so that they can start preparing freshman year. I know, even now, my senior is like what, a month away from graduating, and then some of this is still brand new information. So I think that might be a me problem though, not a school district problem. Or my kid is not good at communicating, but I think having those meetings prior to senior year would be successful.
And thank you for this suggestion. I have a quick clarifying question, because our schools do class meetings each year. And then in addition, the college and career specialists and school counselors will also go into classrooms so that it's a smaller setting to do these types of classroom lessons around bright futures, and also like what's a grade point average and how do you raise your GPA, and then how unfortunately can one F really lower it, or a D. But my clarifying question for you is, do you feel that maybe we need to do more of the parent nights each year to pull in and directly communicate with the parents about these topics?
I think parent nights are important. I have not seen, I have a senior and I have a freshman. I have not, and I know this year has been a little weird because of the hurricane. So I haven't seen anything for freshmen, like the class meetings, and they might like, and I mean that as like an after school thing where parents might be able to pop in and get information. I'm sure she seems way more prepared than even my senior is just at this moment. Like, I'm sure she's ready to graduate. So I think the parent nights are definitely important, because this is a lot of important information, and I would love to be a little bit more prepared for my freshmen going into the future than I feel like I am with my senior this year.
Thank you. I noted that. That's why your feedback is so important. Thank you for that.
Jessica, you can go
Okay.
ahead.
All right. I just want to make sure Jamie's done. I actually was going to say something similar. There are a lot of parent meetings about when your child is going to high school and they're an 8th grader. I would actually suggest, I did hear some about Bright Futures at those meetings, but some of the specific requirements, like that that you have to have service hours pre-approved. I've got a freshman this year and I didn't realize that. Now that's on me because I should have gone to the Bright Futures website and looked into it more. But, he's been doing service hours through service clubs and things like that. But I was going to say that would be very helpful to do, maybe have more of those resources out there for those pre-high school meetings, and doing a lot with Naviance at that point as well. Reinforcing that would be a good time for that. And then for parents, this is kind of the teacher side of me, because I teach reading. Is reading considered one of the remedial classes? Because it's required by the state if they have not passed the FAST test. So I was just curious because I saw it said 6, and with the new 7-period schedule, that means if they're in a required math class and a required reading class, they automatically don't meet that, even if they seriously improve.
And that's a good point. Just to clarify, that is college remediation. So when they matriculate to college, yes, they need to have the minimum credit threshold every semester to maintain their scholarship, and none of those courses can be remedial. And also federal student aid will not cover remedial courses either. It's safe to say for a student to achieve that SAT or ACT score, that they're typically not going to also then engage in remedial courses in college. But I'm glad you asked that question because that's an important clarification. The other piece too, I would encourage you as a parent to talk to your child's school counselor, because all will not be lost. If they are doing their volunteer service hours or have done some without like the pre-approval, but it's been with a nonprofit, we still look at those hours. There are just certain hours that we're unable to take, and I don't want students to spend time doing something that then doesn't count, but please do inquire about that.
Yeah, but I just know there's a lot of students too that are also doing the work portion of it, and and clarification for them and for the parents on what will and won't count, because as Ms. Merchant said, students are not always the best about sharing that information back. And sometimes as parents, we just get caught up in all the other things going on and forget to ask the right questions, or we don't know the right questions. So
good
that would be.
And I made a note of that. And you're right. I mean, it's on us as a system to ensure parents directly receive information, because kids will be kids and we can do a better job. So I appreciate the suggestions.
Thank you very much.
There is a quick question in the chat box. When do students apply for Bright Futures? They need to apply during their senior year, and that's where the college and career specialists and school counselors really push every senior to get that application done.
And then Lori, Mr. Tyler has his hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just have one quick question. With the social science aspect of the 3 credits, with the governor's implication of the financial literacy class, is that going to change it to more than 3, or is that going to stay at 3?
So right now sorry, Lori.
No, you go.
And I was gonna say that financial literacy class is counting in as a 0.5 elective piece. So it's one of the required now. We are still waiting though for the graduation requirements to update and the course to be released. We know that it starts with next year's freshmen. However, we don't have all of the pieces of information yet from DOE. So at last, that is what they shared with us. That doesn't mean something could change right now, but it's an additional 0.5 elective.
All right, thank you.
Kelly, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm having some technology issues. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. And because of that, please someone stop me if this question's been asked already, because my phone has been going in and out. But when you were talking about a little earlier in the conversation about the fact that you all have grown your promotion to students who are maybe close to meeting that PSAT level that would bring them into the national merit range. And that's something that I represent Estero High, and that's something that we had brought up there in the last couple of years. And I was glad to see them individually promote it some more. And I'm glad to hear that the district is doing some things for that as well, because that's obviously a big deal for students who maybe would be close to that, but don't really know how all of that works. Kind of related to that, this idea that for those that maybe are not able to make like an ACE diploma or an IB diploma, or aren't in one of those programs, but maybe are close to the medallion level of the SAT. I just wanted to give some feedback that I would love to see a little bit more promotion of that to eligible students. So let's say, for example, at each high school, you're looking at students who are in like that 1100 range. And maybe I know that, sometimes it's hard to just add one more thing to somebody's to do, but, maybe it's just letters home to their parents saying, hey, we want to make sure you're aware of the fact that your child is close to this scholarship, and, here are some resources. I know some of the high schools have some different SAT, ACT tutoring. Sometimes there's even an elective course offered for some students at some schools. Certainly there's free resources, things like Khan Academy and such, that students can use without needing to have monetary resources, to try to up their score. And so I just think that's an area where a lot of times parents don't know all of these details of all of these scholarships, and they maybe don't realize the significance of 75% of tuition for 4 years of university. And so I think something like that, in addition to the way that you all are growing and promoting these diploma, advanced diploma, pathways to Bright Futures, that would also be good to promote those students that are close, or same with the students that are in the 12s that maybe are, with a little push could get into the 13s and get that academic, 100% level as well.
And this is another PowerPoint for Naviance, because it used to be, well, it still is, that we typically had to call each student in, make sure they were aware of exactly their status, how close they are, which we still want to do. But imagine the power of sending them a message through Naviance, but also messaging their parents through the parent portal of Naviance, specific to here's where you are, here's where you, what else you can do to get there, and here are the dates. So this is another communication advantage of Naviance, that we can also use that in addition to the individual contacts. We can use school messenger as well, but if we can get our middle and high school parents used to checking into Naviance with these types of topics, it will be a really good tool. It'll be powerful. So I made a note of your feedback as well. And you all have amazing suggestions, and thank you. This is exactly what we wanted to garner from tonight's presentation.
And can I just add to my question to that? I think that's wonderful what you just said about Naviance. So is it kind of, is there like an economy of scale in that can a guidance counselor group message, like pull all the kids at one time that are in that 1100 range and like group message? Does that save them some time and effort?
Yes, school counselors will be able to do that and group those students into a communication. Of course, that will only go to that student's portal, so they won't be able to see who else it went to, but yes, and it can be personalized, etc.
That's very nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have anybody else with any comments, questions, or feedback for our wonderful presenters on these incredibly complex topics?
You guys did awesome. Thank you so much for all of this. I still don't feel like I am processing everything. This is just so much, but you guys did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll definitely second or third the suggestion of more parent involvement. Unfortunately, although our children, particularly in senior years, are obviously high schoolers and getting ready to go be independent, what you hear often in both the SAC meetings and in other things is our children still need their parents pushing them over the finish line. Most of them are not pulling us across the finish line. We're pushing them over that finish line and then praying that somehow over the summer when they go away to school or go off to whatever they're going to do, that they develop that full independence. But the more parents can find out about these things, the better. I'll say the pre-approval, people don't realize how harsh that is, the pre-approval of the service hours. You might think to yourself, they just need to be pre-approved to make sure you're doing something that qualifies. Not you go do 50 hours of service that would be perfectly qualified, but because you didn't request permission in advance, those 50 hours don't count at all and you have to do it again, even if you went to the same place and did the same type of work that perfectly qualifies. So, I mean, I think those are things that parents need to know to make sure their students or children are doing that. And I think that's helpful, even to the teachers that help their children in their classes, that the harshness of some of these things and the strictness and complexity is something that the more avenues there are to get that information out, the better.
Mr. Hertz, and I would like to also reassure every parent and teacher on here, administrator, that if a student has not obtained pre-approval, but their hours meet the criteria, we will always work in the best interest of the student to count those hours. There are some submission requirements. They have to write a reflection of what they learned, but as long as they do their hours according to the guidelines, even if it's without pre-approval, the Department of Education allows districts that flexibility as long as they are appropriately done, but also they have to be during high school. So as soon as they leave 8th grade, they could even start the summer before. And that's where a lot of times we don't see, Jessica, to your point, we don't see the pre-approval because kids may not be directly connected to that counselor. The counselors are off for the summer, but I just want to assure everyone that that time will not be wasted as long as it's at an appropriate site like a nonprofit. They can do activity on behalf of a political candidate. There are certain statutory pieces, but to your point, we will work on that communication, and especially coming out of 8th grade, maybe we need to send out a district-wide parent message with the criteria. And so we're going to meet as a team and talk about the ways we can improve that. But if we do need to go backwards, we're reluctant to penalize a student when they've done appropriate work for their volunteer hours.
Mr. Denny, you have a comment or question?
Yes. Yeah, just to kind of tag on with this, and I appreciate that you you addressed, so my oldest will be getting out of 8th grade this year. Is it something the district's looking at to maybe have like a Google form or something set up for the pre-approval? If that is a hang up, I'm trying to meet the intent. Obviously, it won't be like an auto-approved thing, but to better meet the intent of the state of Florida, but also service the thousands of high schoolers that we have, it seems as though some automation may be able to help. To kind of get after that. And certainly to meet the intent of the student trying to get it approved might make it even easier with the leeway the state's already given you. And also just kind of some cool checks for parents also, just to be like, hey, the basic form says this, does this have that? I don't know if it's been explored or not, or if it's even possible given the language in the law, but I would love to see if that's a possibility.
A lot of our high schools use a Google form for that pre-approval process. We can look at how to make that more of a district-wide access point. It would have to be outside of Google because we're limited, I think, to the number of, I guess they have it in a Google Classroom, but they have access to the form. I wrote that down. We will look at that so we could do something more district-wide for parents and kids to access.
Sweet, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions for our presenters? Seeing none, I would welcome public comment from any non-DAC members on the agenda items tonight for our informational meeting. Seeing none, if any of our members have any comments they'd like to make for the good of the order, now would be the time to raise your hand and request to do that or to speak up. Seeing none, I will not ask for a motion to adjourn tonight because it's not an official meeting. So I thank everyone for attending and participating. As always, if you don't have the contact information for Candace and Lori, I can speak on their behalf. They always welcome and solicit feedback. If you don't have it, I don't remember if they put it in. Sometimes they do. I don't think they did it in this particular presentation, provide their email addresses, but you could always send it to Miss Rude, who you get all of the correspondence from, and she would, I'm sure, happily forward it on, or you can find them if you sort of make an effort on the district website. They're findable, but they do often get feedback. I won't say often, but I know they have gotten feedback after meetings from members and stuff, and they still consider that in terms of thoughts or ideas. If you think of something or something comes up at your SAC and you ever want to reach out, and if you can't get them, either Dr. Cuban McCoy or Miss Rue will be happy to take that. And Candace just put hers in the chat so everybody can see it. It's CandaceMA@leeschools.net. And if I had to guess, it's Lori MB@leeschools.net, which is why they make that their names in the Zoom to make it easy to find them. And I can see by their smiles, they would love to get more feedback or thoughts or comments from you on this type of stuff. And I'll remind everyone that they significantly changed their grade point presentation based on things that came out of this meeting. So a lot of the feedback from this group, these two ladies in particular, I have seen how they have altered their presentations to the school board and the information that goes out to our schools based on the feedback they get here. So again, I continue to encourage everyone to share that type of information because it truly does have an impact. With that said, our next meeting will be April 26th. I hope that we have a full quorum. This is the first time since the pandemic, 2020, I think, that we haven't had a full quorum. So I'm not sure what happened tonight, but hopefully we'll have a full quorum for our next meeting. I look forward to seeing everyone April 26th. Have a great night.